VP of IAB, Southeast Asia and India. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the latest in our Revolve webinar series. This week, we take a look at digital everywhere, evolving mediums in an evolving world. Digital is an ever-changing medium that we can innovate. Then we can innovate on top of our innovation. We now live in a world propelled by technological advances, newer mediums, and on-the-go consumers who often quickly scroll past their ads in haste to get to other engaging content. The question we're going to answer today, I think, is incredibly pertinent. How will marketers continue to engage with consumers in ever-evolving digital mediums? Firstly, we'll hear from Laura Quigley, IAB Southeast Asia and India Regional Board Member and Senior Vice President for APAC of Integral Ad Science. He'll take us through some research and findings which explore the change in eyeballs to evolving mediums such as OTT and digital out-of-home. Laura will then be joined in a fireside chat with Colleen, Vice President, Partnerships and Investment from APAC from Xaxis, and Rachita, the Product Lead from Gojek, to hear how they are evolving their businesses in this fast-paced space. This is, of course, an interactive session, so please do feel free to use the Q&A function. You'll find it on the right-hand side of your screen. The slides will be available for download at the end of this session also. Without further ado, I'll hand you over to Laura Quigley to get us started.
Thank you. Thank you for having me this afternoon. So soon I'll be joined by Colleen and Rachita, which I'm excited about. But before I do that, I will be doing a short presentation and then I will have the ladies join me. So let's get into it. First, let's take a look at how much the industry has changed over the years. Jump to the next slide, please. If we look at the landscape in 2011, we had companies doing web testing, building landing pages, the start of social media analytics companies, and just a handful of mobile marketing companies and video content companies. The display ad market was a lot smaller. If we fast forward to today, it's very complex. I'm not even sure I can make out some of these logos, and they look like little islands. Social in the yellow 9 years ago was a mere 6 brands or 6 logos. And now we have the expansion of influencers, influencer communities, reviews, and this comes with new areas like management in grey. You can see it down the bottom right-hand corner, where we have talent management companies. There's also the growth in the e-commerce space, which is propelled even further by the pandemic. And then in the blue, we have data. Not long ago, we had what we call databases and targeting. Now we have the likes of DMPs, audience marketing, and even companies doing dashboards and data visualizations. Last but not least, programmatic didn't even make the cut in 2011, and we now know this is a huge growth area for Southeast Asia. Most of you would have seen a version of this, looking at it programmatic from a regional lens. Move to the next slide. Programmatic has expanded beyond just the open marketplace and long tail inventory we started out with, moving into data providers and platforms and companies like IAS, ensuring that when you're buying programmatic inventory, you're buying quality inventory. So it's great, and thanks to the IAB for building out this programmatic ecosystem so we can see the ecosystem for Southeast Asia. So if we look at the industry overall in summary, in 2011, we had 150 brands. In 2020, we now have 8,000, which is exciting. So what does that mean for consumers? Let's now take a look at this through the consumer lens and look at evolving media habits. So if we look at how the history of advertising has changed over the years, we've started with the newspaper in 1704 and the first advertisement on radio in 1920. And today we live in a whole new world. Facebook in the early 2000s started allowing demographic targeting. GDPR came in. Twitter have just stopped political advertising. It's fair to say we live in a digital world that is explosive and exciting, but it can be complex at times. So let's fast forward to today and take a look at consumer media habits through the generations. So basically here you can see in this report all the different types of media that consumers are consuming. And then in the middle you can see the percentage of how much they're consuming of that particular medium. So we're going to look at this through a few generations. The first, the baby boomer generation, those born between 1946 to 1964. The baby boomers have really seen the change and evolution of media altogether. And their habits, however, haven't really changed. We always default to what we know, and the baby boomers still consume the majority of their media through broadcast TV at 24%, which you can see here. So if we move to the next generation, Gen X, which was born between 1965 to 1980, have increased their TV watching more than any other generation, but they're also watching TV online, reading the news online, and listening to the radio. Now on to the millennials. The millennials are a bit of a difficult bunch. So they were born between 1981 to 1996, and they really do consume almost all of these mediums: online video, online TV, broadcast TV, press, music, streaming, the list goes on. But with this generation, we also have the introduction of video games. Last but not least, Gen Z, born between 1997 to 2012. Gen Z again are consuming a lot of online videos, online TV streaming, and video games. They're a lot more deliberate in what they're consuming, probably much easier if we think of how to target these generations from a brand perspective. So now let's have a look at evolving mediums. I'm going to briefly touch on some OTT research that we recently conducted, and then I'm also going to look at digital out of home. But first, the media consumption by generation demonstrates that consumers are spending a large amount of their time consuming online video and online TV, or as we call it in the industry, OTT and CTV. So it's no surprise that there is a revolution happening in our living room. If you're anything like me, I've exchanged over catch-ups with friends, family, and clients the latest TV shows they're watching. I was trying to think as I was putting this together one of the shows that I could recommend, but then I realized it was around, I think it's called Rags to Riches, and it's basically like a antique car show where they sort of spruce up these cars and make them look a lot hotter than what they were. So not sure if anyone's interested in that, probably quite left field and not something you'd think I'm interested in, but lots of shows out there. So our world has completely changed, and we do talk about these things. Entertainment as we know it has changed. And in IAS, we've seen a huge growth in clients measuring and verifying OTT and CTV. So we wanted to ask consumers more. We interviewed 505 consumers in the region to find out more. So this research was conducted in Indonesia. To start with, however, I just wanted to quickly level set on what we mean by connected TV or CTV, as there's a lot of ambiguity around the OTT and CTV acronyms. OTT stands for over the top. That term covers the concept of media streaming services offered directly to consumers via the internet across any device. So you can see from the diagram that connected TV is a subset of OTT and specifically speaks to the device, which is a TV screen connected to the internet, whether it's a smart TV or has a gaming console or a streaming device. So just quickly onto the research. Let's take a look at this first from a macro level in the region. Connected TV has become almost universally adopted. 7 in 10 consumers confirm they have access to a CTV device. Where consumers are, advertisers should be. So if you haven't already started to build out a CTV strategy, now is a better time than ever. So where are consumers watching their video content? Probably no surprises here for our region, but on average, consumers use 1.57 devices to stream OTT content, with mobile being the most popular device. I can just see myself sitting on my couch now, mobile in hand, TV in front of me. So I'm sure we're all like this. CTV trails behind at third. So what are we watching? Again, no surprises here. With close to half of consumers subscribed, YouTube leads the pack among subscription streaming services, followed by Netflix. What is nice to see, however, in this data is some of our local players being amongst the top, including View and iFlix. As consumers and buyers, it's important to remember and include these significant platforms. Let's now take a closer look at our data on subscriptions. So it wouldn't be research without some COVID data. And while the pandemic is a tragedy, it has changed the way we live and work forever. So it's only right that we take this into consideration when we're doing this research. In the wake of ongoing the COVID-19 epidemic, the consumption of streaming content has steeply increased. As stay-at-home orders begin to alter and the pandemic continues, the continual use by consumers may lead to long-standing adoption. 92% is a significant number, and I really don't see this changing anytime soon. It could be a long time before we return to music, concerts, the cinema, and not only are we watching shows, entertainment as we know it has changed. So let's now have a look at this in terms of streaming subscription services. Consumers are significantly more likely to add a free streaming service than a subscription service due to COVID-19, with the majority of consumers adding some type of new device. I'm just going to stop here. I heard a friend on the weekend tell me that they have a cap in terms of how much they spend on devices, and his cap was $100. And so he fits into his budget, Netflix and all the other bits and pieces, and then has a cap of $100. And I think, it'll be interesting to see if other consumers start to think like that as well. They start to think of online and streaming and subscription services as having a dollar value cap. So, next slide. We know that 2 or 3 streaming subscription services can add up. And when considering budget concerns, I think there's going to be more budget concerns as time goes on with the pandemic. Consumers are resistant to layering streaming services. One possible solution to reaching more users is to increase advertising, which is great for everyone hopefully listening today. As a majority of consumers are willing to see ads in exchange for free content, with 84% being willing to see the ad, this is great for brands and agencies as well as the industry. So when consumers see ads, they want to see relevance. So while a majority of consumers will be willing to see ads in exchange for free streaming video, high quality and the relevance of the actual ad ensures that your ad content is fully consumed, thus ensuring the efficiency of the ads in the video streaming space. All in all, I'd say this research is really positive for advertisers in the industry as we know it. And I always say it takes 30 days to create a habit, and I think we're well and truly there now. So video consumption is here to stay. So moving quickly just along to digital out of home before we wrap up. Out-of-home media has long been considered an efficient and reliable brand building medium. Out-of-home has seen reduced spend for obvious reasons. However, as the pandemic changes, we will see growth again in this medium. And this is a medium I'm actually really passionate and really excited about. The figure we have for digital out-of-home is predicting an 8% growth by 2023. Knowing that in 2019, digital out-of-home advertising revenue accounted for 60% of total out-of-home advertising revenue. That's huge. So what is the evolution that is happening with digital out-of-home? So we have 2 types of digital out-of-home. Your static out-of-home, which is 100% share of voice, viewable 24 hours a day. The exciting evolution is digital out-of-home. This means rotations, day parting. It also could mean more supply, which is a challenge for the industry. It gives us so much more control, adapting to conditions like weather. I've seen some really great sunscreen weather out billboards as well, traffic control, social media, and more importantly, it now allows for dynamic creative. And I think that's really exciting, bringing back really great creative. And then lastly, it allows for interactivity as well. So the industry is really excited about digital out of home and also the development of programmatic digital out of home. We do still, however, have some challenges. We need to be sure we can access more inventory. There's some measurement challenges there. And, we need to make sure as well, I think the industry is going to call for more granular targeting. So that's something we need to strive for as an industry. So in summary, the digital ecosystem is exciting and it is complex, but it's an exciting place to be. Millennials are, one generation that consume content across multiple mediums. And hopefully you find that research really interesting and you can take that into your brand building or your brand planning. But yeah, the millennials are a little bit more complex in that they're dipping their toes into all of the different media, different types of media and consuming all different types of media. OTT is a huge growth space. I think most people would probably know that by now. But relevance is really important for the consumers. And last but not least, digital out of home is an evolving medium, and programmatic I really do think is going to be the game changer. So without any further ado, I will now ask Colleen and Rachita to join me. And please feel free during this fireside chat to ask questions as well. There's a chat box on the right-hand side, so feel free, and I'll be keeping a close eye on that. Fantastic. Hi, ladies. Nice to have you with us today. I'll just check.
Hello, Laura.
Perfect. Great. All right, let's get into it. I'm going to start with you, Rachita. I'll get you to kind of introduce yourself and let everyone know what your role is at Gojek.
But first of all, I would like to thank you, Laura and IAB, for inviting me to this event. It's also a pleasure sharing the ideas with you and colleagues. So thank you very much for that. I'm currently the product lead at Gojek, and I'm leading new media monetization at Gojek. I have about half a decade of experience in advertising technology, building products for advertising.
Wonderful, very exciting. And what about you, Colleen? Thank you for joining me today. I'll get you to introduce yourself as well.
No, thank you, Laura, to you and to Rachita for organizing this panel. And thanks to the IAB as well for inviting all of us. So I look after partnerships and investment for Xaxis across the Asia Pacific region. Xaxis is the programmatic buying arm of Group M. And we basically, in my role, I work with all of the third-party technology partners that we have, brand safety partners, data, as well as media partners across the globe.
Fantastic, thank you, Colleen. And so I'm going to get into it, and I'll stick with you first, Colleen. So first question is, what are the ways that you as a business are adapting and investing in these new emerging mediums?
Yeah, no, thanks, Laura. I think your presentation earlier was very insightful. I actually was looking at some of that research as well, and I think you touched on two kind of very relevant points for us at Xaxis in particular, which was digital out of home and the kind of OTT, CTV space. What we've been doing, I'd say, maybe breaking it down into these two areas, is from a video standpoint, that has been kind of the brunt of our existence for the last couple of years. So we're very heavy in video. Majority of our buys are actually video. And in the last probably year or so, with the advancements of technology and giving us that better holistic view of the consumer, we are able to put together a video consolidation narrative that allows us to have a single view of the user to drive better reach and performance, all in a brand safe manner, and with all your kind of bells and whistles of data and tech and AI and creative. I think where I found a little bit more interesting was, when you talked about digital out of home, because during the whole kind of lockdown that Singapore has been in, many countries around the world have been in, we actually took the opportunity to really revamp our digital out of home solution. And what I mean by that is, we've come up with a much more holistic offering that helps us bridge the gap between offline and online consumers and those data sets. And so, what that now gives us is a 360 view of the consumer that historically we never really had a very good, perspective on. I think in the past, a lot of us are looking at, advertiser website visitors, third party, data that we get from interest and intent behaviors. And that's usually very siloed from people who are physically going to stores. We're now actually working, with third-party location partners who are able to capture that person who's gone to a high-end shopping mall, and then bridge that back to the advertisers' data of people who have physically gone to their stores to make the purchase, and then stitch it back together with the online world. So I feel like that's what I find to be really exciting within the kind of digital out-of-home space and what that's evolved for us.
Wow, that's really interesting. That's super exciting. That gets me even more excited about digital out of home. So that's great. Thank you. Really good start. And then Rachita, I'm going to ask the same to you. So, at Gojek, how are you as a business adapting and investing in some of these new mediums? I know you've got some exciting things you're working on around out of home, and I won't steal your thunder, but yeah, how are you adapting and investing in these as well?
Sure. Thanks, Laura. I actually echo what Colleen said. So given, the current pandemic, even at Gojek, we've been looking at new opportunities, to reach out to our users as well. So for those of you who don't know about Gojek, Gojek is a super app and in Southeast Asia, and we have around 20 plus businesses spanning across payment, shopping, ride hailing, right? Like all rolled into one. So this whole pandemic situation has actually given us a very new and fresh lens into how can we interact with our consumers better. So talking of advertising technology, right? Like I think all of us have seen the shift towards digital for a really long time. So the trend of traditional OOH becoming digital is not a surprise as such, right? But what is noteworthy is that digital OOH is becoming a lot more like personal media. So talking about phones or laptops. When we look at technology and the innovation in this space, for example, for starters, the move to becoming programmatic in nature, right? Like to add to it, the innovation in interactivity and measurability. And like where it retains the appeal of traditional OOH, which is reaching and capturing the attention of millions of people, digital OOH also allows us to have some sort of reliable measurement. The second one is the increased contribution to omnichannel approach, just like Colleen mentioned, right? Like the research has definitely shown that propensity of a user to interact with brands is a lot more after seeing an OOH campaign. So now, if you have to build on that, right? Like think about hyperlocal targeting that digital OOH can actually provide, right? So say weather-based targeting, like you mentioned in your research notes, day parting, or even creative optimization and retargeting based on the location of these users, right? Like that sort of makes it a very super interesting medium to look at. The third one, of course, is video. I think all of us are seeing that that video continues to be a very powerful and a preferred ad format, and that continues. That trend is seen even in digital out of home. So we've observed that shorter videos are more popular, and by shorter I mean 3 to 6 second videos are more popular in digital out of home. At Gojek, our philosophy has been to work towards creating a positive impact at scale using technology. We have a patented innovation, which is a smart screen mounted on a bike that offers programmatic ad serving with advanced targeting and measurability. So we continue to invest in technology that has the potential to impact millions of lives. And in the same spirit, we look at digital OOH also as a space that has a lot of scope for innovation. We work with our driver partners as well as merchant partners and partners at other places of interest to position our smart screen inventory. And as a testimony to positive advertiser sentiment towards this new innovation, despite the current pandemic, we have a pilot of 50 smart screens on the road mounted on bikes running currently, and with some marquee advertisers who've chosen to work with us. And we are seeing several advantages over traditional OOH even during this pilot that we've launched. For example, with programmatic ad serving, obviously you get this advantage of showing dynamic content, right? Like changes with your needs on the fly, and it sort of reflects real time. And of course, advanced targeting, like location targeting, day parting, all of that is there. But what is also noteworthy is that the credibility, right? Like, so we've had multiple innovative verification techniques incorporated into this digital out of home stack so that we are able to report data first, metric driven KPIs, and a measurable return on ad spend. We work very closely with our advertisers to get this sort of continuous feedback so that we can continue improving our product, and that also allows us to identify and solve for real challenges like measurability, like I was talking about earlier. So, I mean, I think seeing the initial success of our pilots and the positive sentiment of our advertisers, I think that gives us the confidence to, continue investing here and having a laser sharp focus towards discovering the right product market fit for our inventory. This new medium digital OOH that we are talking about, and come out stronger upon the pandemic recovery.
Nice, thank you. Lots of exciting things going on, and I saw an image of those panels on the back of the bikes the other day. So yeah, can't wait to see them in person one day. I'm actually just going to, I can see a couple of questions that are coming through, and so there's one of them that I think I would sort of like Colleen to ask, and then we'll sort of get back to it. So I think it's quite an important one. So someone's asking, Colleen, and I feel like this is right up your alley, although I could probably do it as well, but someone's asking, they're new to the industry, and the word programmatic gets thrown around a lot. Is there a distinct definition for programmatic?
I think this is probably where it's all the acronyms in our industry that confuse people. Programmatic is probably one of those terms. When I think of programmatic, I kind of use it synonymously with automation, right? So it's automating the buying and selling of inventory. Right now it's digital inventory, but who knows, that will evolve. And what that kind of encompasses further is the ability to then buy on a real-time basis, impressions one at a time, layered on with a lot of the kind of, data, insights and signals that we know about the user to inform our buying decisions. And that coupled with making sure you are in a brand safe environment, you apply the measurements, tools to ensure that that impression is coming from a, publisher that you recognize and is a domain that you like to buy from. You have all of those kinds of verification proof points that you can go back to look at from a reporting standpoint. So, even going down to a log level data, if you wanted to get an impression by impression account of what you bought, what are the bids that have happened, I think that's where the programmatic prowess, comes into place, because it's such a massive kind of realm of data that you can dig into. It's simply trying to automate the entire process, but in doing so and in becoming digital, you get access to so much more data that you can then slice and dice as well.
Yeah, it's an exciting place to be. I remember I was telling someone the other day, my first day at Google was a sales conference, and I swear they spoke in acronyms the whole time, that I ended up creating an acronym book, and I decided that I wasn't going to focus on the sales part. I was just going to focus on the acronyms. And so I don't know who the anonymous person is that's asking, but if you want to find me on LinkedIn, I have an acronym book that may help you as well, and I'm sure Colleen has one. But those things can really help, because it sounds like we're talking gibberish, but there is all some method to the madness.
Yeah,
right.
And it's almost, you don't have to be shy about acronyms now. Like if there's an acronym that you might not have heard of, there's almost no shame in just like, is this something new that's, come up across the last week, right, that we never heard of?
Yeah, totally agreed. All right, Colleen, I'm going to stick with you. We're really excited about all the emerging market, all the emerging mediums. There's so much going on. Both of you have touched on it. But it wouldn't be a bit of a fireside chat if we didn't identify some of the challenges as well. So, Colleen, what are some of the challenges that you see in some of these emerging markets? And it depends how you want to split it up. Happy for you to sort of look at OTT and then jump to digital out of home, or else just address it how you want. But yeah, what are some of the challenges you face?
Yeah, sure. I think the biggest challenge is just the space is so complex. Like the fact that there was a question on what, how do we define programmatic is a testament to we have really, complicated our work. And I'm just so glad, Laura, that you had a stat earlier around some 80% of consumers still wanting to are still willing to support ad supported streaming, because that means that, our jobs are still intact. But aside from that, I feel like the whole space is just so complex, so difficult to navigate, and there's so many more players, especially, that you showed in the beginning. I almost miss, the ad network days where you had, a middleman representing advertisers and publishers, and that was the end of it. So yeah, I would say that's probably one of the biggest challenges is, how do we help an advertiser navigate that? And especially when an advertiser has limited funds, limited budgets, how do you then find the most kind of effective way for them to achieve their ROI goals, but hitting as many users as they can, driving as many acquisitions as they can, because like you very rightly pointed to, there's digital out of home that you can spend in, there's OTT that you can spend in, there's audio that you can spend in, even within the video space, there's should I do short form video or interactive video or an in-feed video, and which platform do I go to? Is it one of those walled gardens that we all know very well of? Or, should I go through and kind of cast my net wide and see who converts and who brings in, the acquisitions that I need. So I definitely feel like that has and continues to be a big challenge of ours, which is, why I think if we can come up with solutions that hopefully speak to how we can help advertisers better navigate, this kind of crazier world that we live in. Hopefully, we can show that through programmatic advertising and through the efficiencies that we bring, and especially highlighting the data and the technology that can get layered on. So a lot of, focus on artificial intelligence, which, everyone's probably heard of. It does exist and it does work. I think many of you might have read the recent article that was written by a robot. So AI really does work, and it's very much ingrained in advertising today, and that's something we can take to represent what we do and influence what we do. So yeah, helping advertisers navigate the complex world that we live in is a big challenge.
Yeah, nice. And what about you, Rachita? What are some of the challenges that you face?
So if you're talking about digital out of home also, I was also looking at some of the questions that we are getting from our audience. So I think um, what's true is that, one big challenge that CMOs today struggle with, especially in the out of home space, is justifying the return on investment on awareness campaigns, right? Like for performance campaigns, it's pretty straightforward. But for awareness campaigns, while I think everybody agrees that awareness campaigns lead to better brand recall, it increases interactivity, and probably ultimately it affects conversion also, right? Like down the lane. But at the same time, traditional media, traditional OOH, we've always struggled with having some sort of credible measurability. And I think that is one big challenge. And hence, I think CMOs are also actively looking for tech innovations in this space, to sort of give them that comfort that the money that they're spending is put, spent for some good use. And I think there's a lot of innovation happening in this. And I believe it's also, like innovation in this space is also a big opportunity for media owners like us and other publishers also out there who own digital out of home event. And if you're talking about current pandemic, right, like so it would not be fair to, like not even touch upon the non-tech side of it because I think there's a challenge there as well. I think with social distancing and isolation and, businesses and even employment running, you know, somewhat high risk. I think consumers have also implemented a self-imposed spend ban, a spend cap, right? So I think that also is a challenge for advertisers, and probably Colleen could also talk more about it. But I think it's a great time to build that emotional connect also, with us, right? Like and use this time, this tragedy of sorts to build brand recall and then build your impression of or your perception of a brand as to come across as a very friendly brand that cares for you. So I think these are two things that advertisers that we work with struggle, and on both these aspects we actually try and help them sort of meet those challenges, find solutions for that.
Nice. Okay, thank you. I can see lots of questions coming in as well, so we'll get to those soon. So just a few more. Colleen, I'm going to go to you. So one of the challenges in the market, and you see a lot of people, the industry, and you see a lot of people talking about this, is around measurement. And measurement being key for advertisers. How are you as a business addressing the measurement challenge on some of these emerging mediums?
Yeah, measurement is very close to our hearts as a group. So I think many of you know there's a separate Group M standard, that started when viewability standards were set up, and it was too loose for our liking. And we went ahead with a Group M standard that was a lot more strict, and at that time representative of what we felt like was, a reflection of the quality of what we were measuring. So from a measurement standpoint, very close to our hearts. It's something that we advocate and pitch and just try to encourage day in, day out. And I think that the challenge there is because measurement today is an additional cost. I would say cost by large is going to be the biggest factor from getting advertisers to by default apply measurement. So what we do, at least from a Zaxxas perspective, it's all inclusive, as many of you guys might know. It's an inclusive model. So when we do offer our all-inclusive model of an outcome guarantee, we bake in brand safety measurement, fraud monitoring, viewability. Measurement into our model already, and so it's not something that brands have to kind of set aside as a budget. I think that helps, a lot to ensure that the hygiene of what we run is at least at a, pretty decent standard. But I think it goes back to there is definitely a wider kind of industry, maybe not problem, but a slower adoption to measurement. And what I mean by that is, maybe minus Australia, minus New Zealand, within Asia Pacific, there's still a lot of markets, a lot of local clients, and also, to an extent, regional clients where they are hesitant to layer on measurement because of the additional costs and the inability to tie it back to some sort of an ROI. So yeah, what we're doing, I think, is continuing to advocate, continuing to push that and the importance. And I think ultimately it's illustrating the importance of, yes, as a CMO, you need to ensure that your marketing dollars are being justified and it's driving the ad spend, return on ad spend that you need. But hygiene and the cleanliness of that environment is also very, very important. And what that means is making sure that you protect where your brand shows up. The brand reputation is something that we need to take into account. Making sure you're spending on actual impressions and actual people, as opposed to invalid traffic and people that aren't even seeing your ads. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, Laura, but very important issue for us. And because we're in a region that is generally relatively a little bit slower in adoption, we continue to push really hard on the importance of measurement.
Yeah, and I think we're all equally responsible, aren't we? IS has its place in making sure we're measuring on new platforms all the time as well, both digital out of home and OTT as well. So every business is responsible for this measurement piece to really help sort of empower agencies and in turn power brands, I think, as well, or empower brands, sorry. I've realized we have a lot of questions, so I'm going to ask you one question each to finish, and then we'll jump on to the questions because they're looking pretty good. So I'll finish with you, Ruchita, last question before we jump to the Q&A. I'm a bit of a fan of kind of giving people actionable advice so they hopefully can take away something. So what's kind of 2 bits of actionable advice you can give for those that are kind of looking to navigate this new space?
Yeah, so I think current pandemic has definitely changed the ways we were used to, right? Like, in fact, the new normal also that we're talking about is still a work in progress. We've seen some never before seen trends, right? Like, for example, people of all age groups are going digital. Even the so-called non-tech businesses have gone digital. So this adoption of digitization everywhere is definitely going to stay. So I think keeping that in mind, it would be, I would say, advertisers should focus on, should be able to echo the shared experience, as we call it, right? Like this experience of being part of the pandemic, which is sort of a global phenomenon, and hence it's the best time to position yourself as, to model empathy, humanity, authenticity, and all of that. So one, I think, is that I think that will be super important. And then I think the second focus should be on innovation. So new technologies definitely are going to be game changers. Like, for example, early adopters would tend to stand a better chance for early and stronger recovery. So for advertisers that are looking at or investing in newer technologies that focus on user needs and empathizes with everyone involved in the ecosystem. And having said that, I think building technologies that are safe and credible would be, those are the ones that are going to be game changers, because these days users are also quite educated, right? Like any technology that they are interacting with, whether it be ads or anything else, they're quite educated about it. And so user privacy, user safety, brand safety are all of these topics which are going to be super important. And at Gojek, I think for us, thought leadership is always about building products, whether ad tech or otherwise, focused on innovating on safe and reliable technologies that create social impact at scale. I think that's in our DNA. I think all of us talk about that as something that we are really focused on. So I think the second actionable advice would be that we welcome you, we encourage you, and we invite advertisers to be a part of our innovation in building a digital out-of-home stack for the new normal. And we would be really happy and grateful if you could give us an opportunity to work together with you in this difficult time, so that we can build technologies which are safe for users to use, which are credible, and which give you, comfort that you are spending your dollars in the right space.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ruchita. Really exciting. And I love the word innovation. I think there's so much more we can continue to innovate. And what about you, Colleen? What are sort of the 2 bits of actionable advice you can give? I'm sure there's loads of advice, but what are sort of the 2?
I was just going to say, I'm so glad you didn't skip this question on me. Not a lot of opportunity to get asked this, and just kind of sharing from the angle of having a view of advertising and what's been going on and the challenges. I think one kind of looming challenge has been the publisher side. The one piece of actionable advice, for advertisers and for the industry is the support of the publishers. I think that's generally speaking, maximizing the proportion of spend that should be rightfully going to them. And I think there's, the ISBA report where there's that 15% kind of unknown delta that can't be attributed. These are things where we as an industry have a collective responsibility to try to resolve and try to ensure that, those contributors in that kind of spectrum that you showed at the beginning, everyone has a right to a piece of the pie, but the publishers are almost, unfortunately, the ones that kind of end up bearing the brunt of that eroding CPM. How do we, help publishers sustain themselves better? There's tons of local publishers that have, just closed up shop. Journalism is not as sustainable as what it used to be. It's not as respected. And if you can't, get an article here, you don't even try to read it. Like if you go to a website and a publisher asks you for your email, you just log off and you go to, get someone, go to another outlet that might have something similar. So I feel like the publishing industry is at a very kind of challenging point. And as an advertiser, what I hope advertisers can do is to ensure that you are buying direct with the publishers, that you know what you're buying, whether it's a PMP relationship or a programmatic guaranteed direct relationship with the publisher, or whether it's, through the open marketplace, but you have a list of domains that you know exactly who they are represented as. And that's something where I think, from the Group M perspective, there's a lot of work that's been done. And I think, I can challenge everyone on the call here. If you go back and you pull a publisher report, I'm positive you're going to get within your top 10 domains, undisclosed domains and unknown domains. Like they're rampant, and that's, something we should be shameful of. So if we can support our premium publishers, our, kind of local publishers, I think that will really help drive the cleanliness of the industry that we need. And just quickly for the second one, it's very close to what Rachita said around innovation. I hope that advertisers would have a stronger appetite for testing. So what that means is every mid-quarter, allocate a portion of your marketing dollars that gets specifically spent on something you've never done before. There's so much in this space that you haven't tried, that's always new and coming out. So how do you ensure that what used to work still works and what didn't work, might work later? So have an appetite for testing, and do so by making sure that every quarter you allocate a portion of your spend to trying out something new, and if it works, then great, you continue, but if it doesn't work, then at least you have a view of this kind of new and shiny thing that might not work for you, but maybe for someone else. So yeah, support publishers and be open to testing.
Thank you. I love that. Yeah, I heard a brand on a panel last year say they put a percentage towards innovation every quarter, and I just think that's such a great approach. You need to test and learn, otherwise how do we fail and how do we learn as an industry? So we've got a couple of minutes left. Colleen, I think I'm going to shoot this question at you, actually. So the question is, what motivates clients or brands to experiment and put budget into digital out of home?
I think there's two parts to that. One part is very much related to what I shared earlier about just the overall evolution of technology today. It's not about reaching that user who is now looking at a billboard, or standing in front of a screen on the streets. I think that is kind of your notion of digital out of home. I think we almost need to take a step back to really understand how do we have a holistic view of your user, and whether you want to call it digital out of home, what it's then helped us unlock is the ability to have that 360 view now. So I mentioned earlier the online view of the user coupled with the offline view, and how do we stitch them together so it's a unified, perspective of what this consumer does from a, online browsing behavior standpoint. What do they do on your brand's website to what do they physically do? Are they going into the store to just window shop, or are they actually making purchases, or they making similar purchases in other regards or at your competitor stores? So I think the unlocking of that holistic view of your users is probably where I would position the power of digital out of home. Like we might coin it as out of home, but it really helps us connected to offline and online. And I think that, user view is invaluable. And that's something that, you can unlock with digital out of home, or you can call it something else, but it's understanding your users better that will help you unlock, their behaviors and help you better understand how to connect with them and how to encourage them through the purchasing journey.
Amazing, thank you. I'm being told that we've run out of time. There's some really great questions in there. I hope that we can sort of even to the anonymous and sort of answer those in a different forum if need be. So thank you again, Rachita and Colleen, for joining me. I really appreciate it, and thanks to everyone listening as well. I hope you found today insightful, and I think I will take us back to Laura to close us off.
Amazing. Guys, thank you all so much. For those of you who have PM'd me and asked me about the slides, yes, if you want the deck, the survey will be sent out shortly. Please complete that to get access to the content. On behalf of everyone here at the IAB, Laura, Rachita, Colleen, thank you all so much. I really have learned so much today, and I hope that you'll join us again. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.